Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another Saturday React show. It is me, Ed, and I'm joined with Alex
Hello.
and Astrid. So, how is everybody doing on this fine Saturday morning?
Good. How about yourself?
Oh, doing all right. It's been a nice week. I had yesterday off, so got to use
So
that
far,
Awesome.
so
vacation
good.
time before you lose it. So,
Awesome.
yeah. So, yesterday seemed to be an interesting day. Apparently, everybody decided to say, "Well, if you can do that, I can do this."
Mm.
But
Yep.
we're going to start with the biggest news of the day for me, and for me, this has got to be no. We're not talking about the Impact World Championship changing hands. No. We're talking Fuego del Sol. Fuego del Sol is all elite. But
Yeah.
honestly, this really is the best thing that happened on that show. No. I say it as a joke, but I also say it meaning something. This dude has gotten himself over so hard with all of these people, with the internet community, by being by not winning. I mean, let's be honest here. The dude goes out there, he wrestles his butt off, he gets beat, he makes people look fantastic. Every company needs these guys. I said it forever with Heath Slater in WWE. There's always a room for a guy like Heath Slater in WWE because of the fact that there's always somebody that you need to have that doesn't win.
Mm.
There's always a guy that you need to throw out there and say, this guy can lose and the fans can be okay with it. And for AEW, that's Fuego del Sol. And I really think that it's great that they made a storyline about it. I mean, giving him the contract, even though he lost to Miro, is fine. But I mean, it was really cool having Sammy come out there with Tony, and Tony still has the headset on. I don't think Tony's ever going to not have the headset on when he's on television. Apparently, I think that thing's glued to his head now. But what do you guys think, Fuego del Sol? Does he deserve to be all elite?
Astrid.
I really love the moment because I don't know where I read the report that he didn't know about it, and it was just a surprise, especially being that Sammy's his best friend. That Tony planned for Sammy to do it to get his reaction the way it was so genuine, which is my favorite part of the whole thing. His reaction the whole time, I just loved it. And when I saw Tony, I'm like, this is so special. And even though he lost, it made that moment so special that last night is definitely one of the highlights of the show for sure.
Yeah, Alex.
Yeah. So you have to forgive me. So this week was the first time I actually got to sit down and watch AEW Dynamite and Rampage live. So I don't quite know who Fuego del Sol is.
Okay.
But this was definitely a special moment, especially for him. Like, seeing the look on his face, and him realizing, oh, like this is still happening. Like this is gonna happen. And from what you guys were saying, like Sammy being a good friend of his, having him come out and presenting him with that contract, it was definitely something special.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't know, and we can do a little bit of background here on Fuego. Fuego is essentially the Brandon Cutler of Sammy's vlog.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy who follows Sammy around, does a lot of Sammy's recording, and he's in a lot of Sammy's bits, and he does all the same kind of Brandon Cutlery stuff that Brendan does for the Bucks on Being the Elite.
Yeah.
He's a talented wrestler. He's been doing AEW Dark and Elevation since literally, I think, the beginning of the pandemic. Sammy says for over a year you've been here doing this, and you're like 1 in 50. I honestly don't remember the one win. I'll be honest. I don't even know that he had a win. I thought he was over. But he's a talented wrestler. He's got a funny thing. I mean, we were talking when there was a couple of us that were on the War Report AEW side. We would always talk about poor Fuego. With the last couple of weeks, Fuego's been really getting the brunt end of the stick. He sold that black mask like a champ. I mean, he looked like he died. It was fantastic. And then, the stuff with Andrade, him thinking they were bringing him into the faction just to, spit shine Andrade's boots. So the poor guy finally gets his contract, which is great. I mean, he made Miro look like an absolute beast. And I guess we can move into that match.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Miro is fantastic, and I'm glad that they finally figured out Miro. And I used to say this in the chat of the War Report every week, and it felt weird. For 9 months, Miro was on TV like 6 times. And I understand you have a lot of talent and you're trying not to do the WWE thing of making sure that they're all focused on, but you got to make sure that you have your big name talent on TV, and to have the man on wrestling matches 6 times in 9 months was definitely not the way to do it. But they've pivoted, they've figured out what they want to do, and they're making sure that they run with it. But we have a friend in the chat. I'm definitely going to promote this because there's going to be definitely a couple of us who have done things for this. Tonight on Love Wrestling, the Wordsmith presents Word Slam Part 2. I forget if it's the rematch or the second one. I think it's the second.
I think it's the second one, yeah.
I think it's the second one. He has a tagline for it, and he's going to hate me now because I've forgotten the exact tagline. But tonight at 8 o'clock on all the Love Wrestling channels, you will be able to see Word Slam Part 2, and that will be fun. We also want to thank RK Athletics, because I forgot to do that at the top of the show, because I was so excited about Fuego. Mm-hmm. RK Athletics, if anybody needs some workout stuff, they were during the pandemic, they were doing virtual. I assume they're still going to be doing virtual training. If you're in the area of Canada where they are, you can go ahead and go see Rich King and RK Athletics there. You can find them on all the socials at RK Athletics 1. And he is correcting me, and with many exclamation points. Word Slam Part 2, the second one. So Alex was correct.
You gotta say it with a little gust. Part 2, the second one.
Yeah, that's French accent.
Yeah.
My name may be Fries, and I may be part French Canadian, but I don't know the French.
Part 2. Come on.
But anyway, I mean, I guess we should talk about the big thing that happened with Rampage last night. And hello, Throwback, welcome to you. Oh. Yes, Boston is in the house, and Cena's promo, Roman's promo. You know what? We'll pivot. We'll come back to the Impact World Championship because that was a really great match. But since Throwback's here and he mentions it, let's go ahead with this. Cena versus Roman kicked off SmackDown last night, and they had 2 segments. And it was a long 2 segments. It's 26 minutes of the show. Mm-hmm. And this is finally what all of us... I'm sorry. I will praise that. This is what I've been waiting for this whole promo, this whole thing, is a promo battle between John Cena and Roman Reigns. Because this Roman holds his own with John Cena. We all remember the great promo segment that they had before with their first match that everybody apparently is pretending never happened, because this is a historic moment that Roman Reigns and John Cena are going up. But let's remember that they did have a match, and Kurt Angle was the one who ran that first promo, and it was great because Roman forgot a line. And Cena got to hit him with the, it's a promo, kid, you're going to have to learn how to cut one of these days. And that is absolutely fantastic. But in this one, it felt like Roman was holding his own. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I definitely think this time around, Roman was definitely on top of his game. He was ready, he was prepared, and he's improved a lot, like, over the past couple of years. And this whole head of the table gimmick has been something very much to see. I wasn't a big believer in Roman, but when they started doing this gimmick, I'm like, man, this is so good. He's doing so great right now. And going back to everybody was just like, oh yeah, that match they had in 2016. What match? This is the first time they're wrestling, right? And it's just like, everybody was oblivious to that. And I'm like, no, they're calling this a dream match. No, we've had this match before. This is Cena Rock too. All of a sudden, where it's once in a lifetime. But again, but it is going to be a great match. These two had a phenomenal promo last night, and it's going to be a great match once again at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I feel like that promo definitely had me like I have been waiting for this for the beginning, and not only like the Nikki Bella line, but the Dean Ambrose line, the Rollins line. I was like, this is a lot, and especially the teeth line. That was another one that had me going. And I just like to see Roman's face. I think I only saw him like smile like once. I don't know how he didn't like try to smile before, because those lines were too much for me. I'm like waiting for him to break, and he didn't until like the end of it, thankfully.
Yeah, actually, I was rewatching the promo this morning. If you look back at Heyman when Cena mentions the CM Punk line, the give you a kiss and blow you a kiss on my way out. He just subtly gives a little bit of a smirk, and I'm like, yep, yep, we caught him.
And I do love that they're playing into this, and you can tell that these guys have come up with this. Now, they may not have cleared everything with each other, but they know the ground rules. Like, these guys understand, like, I'm not going to take a complete cheap shot. There are things that are available to be shot at, and there are things that aren't. This isn't a work shoot. I mean, well, I'm sorry, it is a work shoot. They're treating it like a shoot promo, but it's not. It's worked. It's completely understand. Both guys know going in. 26 minutes of a promo, and I wanted to bring this up because I saw it on a different account earlier. Denise Salcedo had brought that up. This whole promo segment with Cena's opening promo, then the face-to-face, was 26 minutes. Overall wrestling time, Rampage had more in-ring wrestling time in a 1-hour program last night than SmackDown did on their entire show.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a damning indictment. I will say one thing to do it, though. Rampage is a first-off show where they're trying to make a big splash. They need to get ratings, so they need to have wrestling. Because nobody wants to see a WCW Thunder. So Rampage last night made sure that we're not going to make this a Thunder show. This isn't going to be Dynamite Light, where you get a half an hour of recaps in 1 or 2 matches that really don't mean anything. They started the show with an Impact World Championship match. They main evented with the Women's World title. I still think it's odd that they opened with that match. But, getting back to the Cena thing, this match is going to be good. These guys have chemistry. We've seen it before. The matches are all right. With this Roman character versus Cena in all his glory, if this wasn't for the title, I honestly wouldn't know which way this match was going to go. I could honestly, in my heart, believe that they would give this match to Cena if the title wasn't on the line. But I can't see them putting Cena over unless they are so incensed that Ric Flair left that they're like, fine, we're going to stick it to you. That's the only inkling that Cena wins this match, is if they can convince Cena to break Ric Flair's record. I don't think it's going to happen, but this match is going to be great. It's going to main event. And SummerSlam itself is looking like a pretty decent card.
Yeah.
There's some matches on there I want to see. But we're definitely going to get to the Impact match because that's what I really wanted to talk about. I mean, I joked about Fuego, but I want to talk about Rampage.
Fuego's no joke, man.
No, Fuego is not a joke. He is all elite, and we need to treat him as an elite talent now.
Yes.
But that Impact World Championship match, while I thought that the ending was a touch overbooked, there was a lot going on that ending, and referees really are the dumbest people on 2 feet. No offense to anybody who watches this who's a referee, but wrestling has taught us that these people have no idea what's going on except the one thing in front of them. You know those blinders that they put on horses?
Yeah.
Referees have those blinders where they can't see anything beyond like this little scope of thing. That being said, what a match. Kenny Omega is one of the most talented wrestlers in the world. It's hard to deny. Christian still can go, and this match proved it. That being said, I'm going to again get on my I'm a WWE shill soapbox again, but I still think it's weird that this is the first match in AEW Rampage history, and you're making it about somebody else's title. I get it's telling a story for your title, but I mean, Miss the Wordsmith coming in with this great line. He is a Hebner after all. Didn't even realize it. Yes, it was Brian Hebner. Wow. Good job, Wordsmith. Anyways, I'm going to continue to say it because we've had it with the NWA World Title, Women's World Title, and we're seeing it again with this. They are putting a lot of emphasis on titles that aren't theirs. And we will forever remember that Christian Cage won a title in a main event world championship in the first match on AEW Rampage, but it wasn't theirs. I know it doesn't mean much, but to me it just feels weird that they value all of these relationships to the point where they're like, no, our title, we can just put that on the back burner. But we have a new AEW World Champion at Emergence. That's a busy day too. Emergence is that Friday is a busy day because Emergence is on at 8 o'clock on Friday night. SmackDown is on 8 o'clock on Friday night. And then we have the first dance from AEW Rampage on at 10. That's a loaded night of wrestling, considering it's also the go-home show for SummerSlam.
Oh, yeah.
So next Friday is going to be a pick'em when it comes to doing it. I don't think we have a Saturday React show next week because I believe we're going to have the POS show. So I just realized that now as we're talking about it. But what did you guys think? Ashley, we'll start with you. Opening match for Rampage.
Yeah, I enjoyed the match. The only thing that obviously seeing, like, I call him Baby Hefner, just see him get distracted for a little bit too long. I'm like, that part is the one that I didn't like about the match per se. But I kept thinking about it. I'm like, is it going to happen tonight? Is it going to happen? Is this like the downfall of Kenny losing all the titles now? And then I have my brother next to me, and they kept telling me, I think it's going to happen tonight. It's going to happen. It's going to be the downfall. It's starting. And I'm like, I don't know. I kept debating it, but I like the ending, though. I just didn't like that part of, like, having to be distracted for a tad bit too long.
Yeah, and we can talk about this as we go, but, tonight, Kenny Omega defends another of his world championships when he defends the the AAA Mega Championship against Andrade. Man, that man is going to be a tired man tonight when he goes and does that. But like you said, the downfall could continue tonight. I half expect the downfall to continue tonight. Yeah. And I kind of hope we get Maniac Kenny. Alex, you said that you watched for the first time this week, so you're kind of getting into everything. What did you think?
So this may have been the first time I got to see it, as it was being aired, but I've kept up with everything, through YouTube and whatnot. I definitely think this is going to lead to a, like you said, a Maniac catastrophic kind of like watching, his eyes on the back of his head, kind of Kenny Omega, and also kind of doubting himself, especially if he loses the AAA title tonight. He's going to have that mentality of like, oh, am I Kenny Omega? Am I still, the cleaner? Can I still, defend this championship? Does Christian have my number at All Out? And I just kind of wanted to go back. You said that, the first Rampage, for AEW, and they have somebody else's title. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to be something that people are going to be talking about. But would they have put their title on the line in the first match on a live broadcast show for free, or rather have done that on the pay-per-view? I feel like they're holding it in a higher regard by putting it on the pay-per-view and having this title and telling this story on their live broadcast on TNT.
And that's a great point. And I mean, and this may not be my best point to sit here and stand on my soapbox and go grrr, and old man yells at son, or old man yells at kids to get off his lawn. Yep. Like, I mean, it may not be the best point to do it. I agree. It's because one, obviously Impact didn't want Kenny Omega versus Brian Myers, which honestly isn't a match I'm excited to see. Christian Cage versus Brian Myers. All right, maybe you have Brian Myers beat Christian Cage. I don't think you should, because you have him facing Kenny, and unless Kenny gets involved, that seems like a silly way to do it too. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I agree that it's definitely. I love how they're telling other companies that we value your titles. Now, granted, we valued them a whole lot more when our guy was holding it, and we wanted to make sure our guy won the first title. But now that we have them on our programming, I mean, it just seems. I don't know. It's just, I've grown up a WWE fan where these are our titles, and our titles are the most important thing in the world. And it's just one of those things where it's weird to see, for me, to see other companies' titles. I also felt it was weird when I was seeing that the NWA Championship, the NWA North American Championship, back in the day in WWE when Jeff Jarrett had it. Mm-hmm. I thought that was odd that you brought in somebody else's title. Now, granted, it was a semi-defunct title at that point because
Yeah.
the NWA wasn't the NWA at that point. I want to say hi to a couple friends in the chat. We got Conrad from EPW Show in there. Hello, Conrad. And we have a question and a topic from Throwback. Who do you guys see Britt facing at All Out? And when do you see Deanna versus Britt for an All or Nothing match? Because that's a match that he would buy a pay-per-view for. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree that would be a great match. I don't think that's where we're going. I'm honestly going to tell you this because everybody's talked about the Impact relationship. I don't think we're ever getting it. I don't think we're getting the invasion angle we wanted. I kind of think this is the end of Impact and AEW. It's the start of the end because I think sooner or later Christian's going to lose that title. And Conrad steals my thunder with what I think is next. I think All Out it is Britt versus Statlander.
Yeah.
I think that was set up last night pretty well. What do you guys think?
Astrid?
I think they will probably set up the way that I would do it, at least do Britt and Jamie versus Chris and Red Velvet and keep going like that a little bit and then lead to All Out having Britt and Statlander because it's the only thing that makes sense at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a dream match in AEW that we want, but I think they're saving it for the next pay-per-view after, which is Thunder Rosa.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the obvious next step after Statlander, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be Britt versus Statlander at the All Out. It makes the most sense right now.
Yeah. Now, do you guys want to see more of these cross-branded matches? Because like Throwback says, Britt versus Deanna would be a great match, and it would. It would. I mean, we're seeing Deanna versus Melina at Empower, which is going to be a fantastic show, and you should get that if you have the opportunity, because the NWA is bringing in all kinds of women's talent for this match. There are some great women's talent that if you don't know them, you're going to find out who they are, and you're going to see some incredible things, including Layla Hirsch, as we're talking AEW, Layla Hirsch from AEW taking on Camille. That is going to be your David versus Goliath, and it is going to be fantastic. I would love to see some more of these dream match scenarios from the Impact relationship with AEW. I would also like to see them from the NWA side. I think there are some great matches that could be had. Imagine an MJF versus Nick Aldis match.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Nick is the epitome of, he can cheat and he can be the dirty heel, and he kind of is. But, to take that and turn it up to 10 million is MJF. A man who doesn't care about tradition. A man who doesn't give a crap about anything other than what he has. And the thought of him holding the 10 pounds of gold with all that history and all that tradition sounds really, really interesting. What would you guys have as a dream match? You have Impact and you have NWA.
For me, I think, and this is all because I'm a fan of Creative Pro Wrestling, I would love to see MJF against Brian Myers. Kind of a teacher versus student scenario.
Okay.
And that's just me because I'm also a big Brian Myers fan and a Matt Cardona fan. So that's me. And that's probably the low key. Nobody else wants to see that but me. So it's all right. I'll take it.
No, I mean WrestlePro is great. WrestlePro is great. They've produced some great talent, and I think that people need to take notice because WrestlePro just announced that they're also having, I want to say it's Deonna Purrazzo versus Mercedes Martinez, and that's going to be a fantastic match. And if you're I'm assuming it's going to be outside of Rahway, New Jersey, because that's where most of their big events take place. So if you're in the Northeast and you get a chance to go to that show, I'm sure that's going to be a great matchup to see. Astrid, what about you?
Mine has really been Deanna and Britt. It's one of those I can't wait for that one. I want it to happen before they decide to end the relationship. I want it to happen before they do that because I feel like we haven't had many of the cross brands with the women. It's mostly been the guys. And I feel like it would be nice to see the other way around and have the girls involved as well.
And the Wordsmith talks about a match that we saw 2 months ago. So.
Man.
Congratulations. But I mean, I tease him, but, because it's fun to tease the Wordsmith because he's an interesting, I don't know if you guys have met him, but he's an interesting cat.
Not yet. I haven't had the pleasure yet.
You will have the pleasure tonight, 8 o'clock. with WordSlam, and let me tell you, very, very interesting dude. I met him earlier this week, and it's an enjoyable but awkward experience sometimes. But he's a great fan, and he's always here. But I love that Sami Callihan versus Omega match.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just because I was on the Impact website earlier today and looking up random things, because I fell down the Impact hole this morning. Impact is selling match-used weaponry on their eBay. Autographed match-used weaponry.
That's an interesting thing.
Well, Impact's got to make that money to somehow keep those lights on, because that company, the company that won't die, like that company has been through hell and back, and they refuse to go out of business.
Yeah,
I mean, to the point where they were on the day of the show, and I remember reports from major reporters who were saying the show might not be happening tonight because they don't have the money to fund the building. Yes, Impact trying to increase money.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's one of those things where it's like they're going to get sold on the outside market anyways. I mean, if you go on eBay anyways, these things are being sold by normal people. So, it's definitely something to do. The wordsmith says, when did that happen? I believe it was their last big pay-per-view, because the match took place at Daly's Place. It was the main event that took place at Daly's Place when the entire Impact pay-per-view was taped from its own location in Nashville. But they had brought the guys down to Jacksonville. Impact has been around longer than... Yeah, everybody forgets. WCW itself as WCW wasn't around for very long. The NWA and Jim Crockett Promotions have been around for a long, long time. But yes, Impact has been around longer than WCW. So we talked about the Impact World Championship. We should talk about the Britt Baker match. We've talked about the outcome and the fallout with talking about Jamie Hayter finally coming back as the heater. I think it's interesting. I saw it posted earlier. I don't know if it was on our Slack chat or if it was on Twitter, but somebody had posted that 2 years ago, roughly to the day, Jamie Hayter was wrestling Britt Baker and had her in a camel's clutch showing off her pretty smile.
Yep.
So it's definitely an interesting thing. Ashton, what did you think of the match?
I enjoyed the match a lot. I was hoping it would be a little bit longer than what it was, but I like how they had a good back and forth. Like Velvet had her response and Britt had her response too. Obviously wasn't expecting the Jamie. At first I couldn't even recognize her, and then I saw that a lot of people were thinking that was Becky Lynch, and Becky Lynch ended up trending on Twitter because people thought it was her. So yeah, Becky is just randomly trending on a Friday night because of that. But I really liked the match, and like it goes back. I saw somebody tweeted. It was a tweet from before that Jamie had tweeted, and Britt had retweeted it with like a thinking emoji. So that was back in like April, I believe, or something like that. I saw the date. So it's interesting to see, like you said, and I saw that same tweet about the dates. So I thought that was interesting going back to that connection there. So I'm excited to see what happens, but now that she's doing Britt as well.
Alex?
Yeah, I thought the match was pretty good. I wish, because near the end of the match when she tried to put on the I don't know what the move, essentially the mandible claw with like the rings of Saturn. I don't know what the move is called, but they played off to the fact that she had the injured hand, and I don't know how much they may have talked about it over the time of the building this match, but I just wish I would have seen a little bit more out of that. Slam the hand against the mat, stomp it, wrap it in the ropes, or throwing it against the ring post. Make that the story you're telling during this match, and then the big payoff is when she switches and uses the other hand to put in the mandible claw for the finish.
And it's called the lockjaw. I had to go look it up.
The lockjaw. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I had to go look it up because I was like, I know this. I know the answer to this. It's some dentist thing.
I felt like a commentator who he did a flip thing off the
It did real good lucha thing.
It was so crazy. I felt like a WWE commentator right there.
And speaking of commentary, we're going to get to the now. I was out gaming last night, so I was picking and choosing my moments. I wasn't listening to commentary. I watched a lot of Rampage with the silent thing while I was playing a murder crime board game. But that being said, what did and Conrad helping us out with the lockjaw? Yes, we love when we have the fans who can help us out when we space on the simplest of wrestling knowledge.
Just big idiots we are, yes.
But what did we think of the four-man booth?
I thought it was great. Just Jericho on the mic. Anytime I hear him is awesome. Mark Henry threw in some good things there. Excalibur, I think, is amazing, and I believe Taz was on there. But I kind of tune out Taz, as much as I can because I'm not a fan of him as a commentator.
In Astrid?
I feel like it didn't bother me. I think Jericho was yelling a little bit too much sometimes, but other than that, I didn't really bother me in that particular part of it. Maybe I had to rewatch it to see if I can notice something different. But to me, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, I've watched parts of the show with the audio on, and I agree. Jericho on commentary can be a bit much. He's very excitable. He's very loud. I think Excalibur is fantastic. I think he reins in Taz in a really interesting way. They have a really great dynamic. They have a very King and JR feel to them. Corey Graves and Michael Cole, they have a really good chemistry together. While Taz is not my favorite commentator, I really do like how he at least brings something to the match, even if it's just that heel dynamic.
Yeah.
It's important to have that. I grew up with Bobby the Brain Heenan. I grew up with, Vince McMahon and people on commentary. Yeah. But that heel side of that commentary team is, the Jesse Venturas, and it's so important to have that little bit of dissension with the heel. And saw people upset with Jericho. Too many people talking, and he wanted to get his crap in. Jericho definitely loves getting his crap in. That's always something in EPW show. Also very happy for Fuego del Sol, as we all should be. Fuego is the man. I love that little guy. I'm sorry. But no, as we talk about the commentary, it bothered me a lot, especially when Jericho kind of blew through, that he's going to beat MJF in Labor 5. Because they had it on the screen, and it wasn't mentioned, at least going towards the main event. It wasn't mentioned. But I thought it weird that they didn't bring up the fact, because I hadn't watched Dynamite, they didn't bring up the fact that it's no Judas entrance music. He has to use different entrance music, and he can't use the Judas effect, which I thought are interesting stipulations for Jericho. And it would have been nice on your show when you have Jericho there to mention that he's, trying to find something else to come out to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hopefully it's nothing else by Fozzy, because most of their other stuff is kind of crap. Judas is the one good song I've ever heard from that band. So hopefully he comes up with something non-Fozzy, but we shall see. But the labors have been interesting. They've kind of blown through them, and I kind of wish Nick Gage had been Labor 4 as opposed to Labor 2. I really think that would have been interesting to have him going into this match with MJF after coming off of a death match with Gage. Reese has a suggestion for Jericho to come out to his WCW Pearl Jam theme. If WWE still doesn't own the copyrights to it, I mean, with it being Pearl Jam, they probably can use that, because I'm sure WWE is still not paying for the royalty rights to that. I'm sure he can come up with something. He's got enough connections with Vince, he could probably even get permission. To be perfectly honest, Conrad talking about the labors, we did get the juice back. Yes, and the juice wasn't as tasty as when we remember it in 1995.
A little sour.
Little bit.
Well, yeah.
So we've... go ahead, Astrid.
Oh, I was going to say, I did want to point out that my favorite line from Jericho was when they have Canadian heat. I will not forget that line.
Yep.
That was the one line.
Yeah. I mean, Jericho is worth $1 million, and commentary is going to be in this man's future if he wants it to be. but I think it's going to have to be with a specific partner. He's really good with Shivani, and I think that's what was missing from Jericho, from reining in Jericho a bit, was Tony Schiavone and that connection they have. He's working with guys that he's not as familiar with. Last night, maybe that could have been problems with Jericho, because Excalibur is a very different kind of broadcaster. I was gonna say we've talked about Rampage, and we've talked about the show as a whole for the most part, because we've hit most of the matches. There were some segments in between, but most of the show was the matches. What do we think of Rampage as a show as a whole? A 1-hour show. Can they keep this pace up? 3 matches a night, a couple of segments? Or is this something... Now, obviously, they have to keep it up next week, because next week we're running the United Center. They are titling it as the biggest show that AEW's ever run, which is true, because it's the biggest arena they've ever been in.
Yep. Hopefully
they can fill this thing out. I don't know if it's sold out or not as of yet. I'm assuming if it's not, it's going to be pretty damn close. I really hope that next week's show is great. But I've brought this up, and I brought this up to a friend of mine, Tom Collihue, as Asher knows him. But I brought it up to him the other day, and I used this phrase, and he thought it was great. I really hope AEW fans don't get blue balls coming out of the first dance next week and then All Out. Because the fans have hyped themselves up to say that CM Punk is coming.
Mm-hmm.
We've had Cassidy Haynes report that CM Punk is coming, but we've had zero confirmation from AEW. AEW has been clear to say, we have not promised that CM Punk is going to be anywhere on any of these shows. We promise nothing. They have Darby dropping best in the world comments all the time. That's not confirmation from the company that CM Punk is coming. That's Darby Allin being a troll, which is great, because wrestlers are the best trolls. Jericho being the best of the best. That being said, if we don't get CM Punk at either of these Chicago shows, how much trouble is AEW in with his fan base? Because the fans are going to, in my mind, be livid that they didn't get CM Punk at these 2 shows. Is there a chance that we don't get CM Punk? I know Pluggo is super excited, and he's over the world, and Punk is back, and everything's great. And we have the great quote from Jeff Jarrett for Love Wrestling with an interview with Spencer that I can't wait to see. That interview is going to be fantastic. And we have Jeff Jarrett talking about how the heart grows fonder as we don't see the people for years and years, and how even he's excited to see CM Punk come back. Mm-hmm. But do we honestly believe that Punk is returning? Let's start with this. Is he returning at Rampage? Do we get music? Do we get a vignette? Do we get any sign of CM Punk next Friday?
I think, if anything, maybe at Rampage. Maybe a vignette, maybe a promo is, something quick, something, off the cuff kind of thing, but not actually give him on a platter at, Rampage. I think save that for All In, especially if they're worried about, selling the seats right now. And I know this has been talked about before on Love Wrestling, but definitely show that he's going to be there in some facet, but don't give him away, Don't give away the milk, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's you don't have your cookies without your milk, and you got to definitely tease it. Mm-hmm. Astrid?
I'm a Punk fan, and if he returns, I'll be super happy. But like you said, at the same time, AEW has not said anything. Obviously, they're dropping hints because people are saying, because they want people to tune in. And to me, one of the reasons people would tune into Rampage next week is expecting a Punk return at least. And if that doesn't happen, I cannot begin to imagine how the fans will react and how the show is going to end. And I don't think TNT will be happy to hear the crowd with the show ending in that way if he doesn't return. Because I think that'd be such a huge disappointment. And I can already see the community on Twitter talking about it as well if it doesn't happen that night. And it's just it has to be either that return or some kind of vignette that makes it seem like it's Punk. Because if there's no sign of Punk whatsoever, AEW, I can see it being, with the fans being done with them. We're going the other way somehow, because this is, if he doesn't show up, I feel so many people are going to be disappointed. But at the same time, AW never said he is going to be here, so it just like
Yeah, it's hard to be mad at a company who hasn't promised you anything. But I mean, I'm going to say this, and this again, this is, I'm not a huge. I like AEW. I think that they're fantastic for what they are. And if you're the type of fan who enjoys the massive variety in their shows, that you're going to get an amazing show from them. I enjoy watching their wrestling show, but I'm not a huge fan of it. But I felt like they've done a bunch of things where they've promised big names and they've promised huge things. And the latest one being, we've got a Hall of Fame worthy candidate. We got somebody Hall of Fame worthy, and it was Christian Cage. Like, I love Christian, but like, we all had our hopes up for something bigger, and it was Christian, which is great. But at the same time, it's like they get themselves in this thing where they say, we're going to make these huge announcements, and they do, and it's kind of like, yeah, like they have a habit of that, and I really hope they don't get into this, because they've got two big names supposedly coming in. They've got Punk and they've got Bryan. If we end September without seeing either one of them, or more importantly, if either one of them show up in WWE before that point, because theoretically, if Bryan isn't officially signed, we could see Bryan return at SummerSlam. We could see him return next week on SmackDown to close out SmackDown. I mean, I wouldn't do that because he's been banished from SmackDown by the head of the table, and we all acknowledge our tribal chief. That being said, I want to see if I could pop somebody, and I did, so that's all that matters. But, so if they don't get either one of these guys, that's a big problem for them, because expectations were set, and fan expectations ruin a lot of good things in wrestling. Sometimes the best and worst thing about wrestling are the fans. Like, we all bash WWE for all the horrible and terrible things that they do. And they deserve to be bashed for all the horrible, terrible things that they do. Because they're a pretty terrible company when it all is said and done. But that being said, fan expectations lead to more disappointment in wrestling than anything else. Because they say, oh, we've got a big surprise, and we all go, it's CM Punk. CM Punk confirmed. And Wrestle Talk literally made it a joke on their own website, to the point where they made a 5-minute video of one of their hosts running around saying CM Punk was coming back, and CM Punk didn't come back.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've been cautioning everybody with the CM Punk one, is because I don't think he's coming back. I honestly don't think he is. I don't think he wants anything to do with the wrestling business. I think he's done. I think he's been done. I think he wants to be an actor. And, I mean, he wanted to be an MMA fighter, and we've learned that CM Punk can get punched in the face really good. He can't return those punches as well as he gets punched in the face. If he watches this, it's the truth. He can't win. That being said, AEW's fan base is potentially in a quandary here, because what do they do if the company that they love hurts them? Because they're not going. These are not the type of fans that are going to turn to WWE, and nobody's watching Impact. I mean, we are, but we're not.
Yeah. And having switched from Twitch to YouTube is making it less likely that people are going to watch, because the show that was free for us to watch is now 99 cents for us to watch. You'd be surprised how many people aren't willing to pay that 99 cents, me included. The programming is not that great. I love Impact. They have some great talent there, but I don't know if I want to pay $1 a month to watch their stuff. But the fan base, what does AEW fan base do if neither of these guys return or debut? I guess you would say in this. I mean, what happens? Like, it's the Marvel what if. It's the AEW what if. If these guys don't return,
is there anything they can pull out of their bums to make this better? I mean, Reese brought it up. I mean, could they bring in Brock? Is that big enough to overcome the disappointment of not having Punk and Bryan?
Go ahead, Astrid.
No, I'm like, for me, I'm not really a Brock fan like that. So if he returns over like either Punk or Bryan or both, that's not it for me. So.
Yeah, Brock for me, like, kind of, I got wore out with him, like when he was just, hey, he's the champion, but where's Brock? Kind of opening that book and trying to find him amongst everybody else, for his title defenses. But like you were saying about, what do they do if Punk and Bryan don't show up? I think there's too much hype for them not to capitalize, and even if that means bringing in Bryan or bringing in Punk right now, that has to happen. It has to happen. Just like you said, with fan expectations, it's every time somebody's let go from WWE, or anytime somebody says, "I'm stepping back in the ring," it's, "Oh, they're going to AEW. Oh, they'll go to AEW," and it's that like, we don't know if Bray Wyatt's going to go to AEW. We don't know if Bronson Reed will go, or Ruby Soho, or anybody. We can only assume, and that's the point where these fans have to realize, hey, we've got to calm it down. Otherwise, we're going to hurt ourselves in the end. We can't expect Punk and Bryan to show up, even though, yes, the writing may be on the wall. They're just going to disappoint themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, I really hope for AEW that these guys come back. Like, I keep saying I don't think Punk's coming back. I mean, I think Bryan's probably all elite at this point. I think he's in, and I think he's signed. Because I think he can have a lot of great matches there, and he has the right mindset. And I'll go back to, I just hope that Punk has the right mindset here, that it's not about him coming back and him having, now granted, Punk should be able to win some of these matches, but it's not all about Punk coming back and winning all the matches. We're going to move away from AEW for a little bit, because we've been talking about AEW a lot. We have SummerSlam coming up, and I had said the match card, kind of looks great. I'm going to go ahead and give you a little preview of this match card and talk about the whole of next week, as Friday to Monday, there is a whole lot of wrestling next week, and you can even extend it, because Friday to next Friday is going to be loaded. So, as we said, we'll get to what's going on first. We have SmackDown and Emergence both on at the same time, 8 o'clock on next Friday. We then have Rampage from the United Center at 10 o'clock on Friday night. Then we have SummerSlam Saturday night. I believe there's also a Ring of Honor show that same day in the afternoon. We then have TakeOver on Sunday, Raw on Monday, NXT on Tuesday, Dynamite on Wednesday, Impact on Thursday, and then SmackDown and Rampage again the following Friday. There's a big chance for wrestling fan burnout.
Even talking about that, I'm just like, oh, good Lord.
Yeah, there's a big chance. There's a big chance some of these numbers are going to be way down, and especially for, I think, depending how next week's Rampage goes, that Dynamite could hit. That could be another 900 week with all the burnout. But getting back to the card, we now have, I believe this is Wikipedia, because when you want wrestling knowledge, you go to Wikipedia, because everybody can edit it, so it must be the most important and up-to-date information.
Yep.
I haven't watched a lot of Raw lately, so I'm not sure if all of these matches are definitely confirmed, but I know most of them are. So we have Nikki ASH versus Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley. That should actually be pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what? We're gonna have our own little POS show. We're gonna predict a week ahead. What do you guys think happens in that match? Who leaves as the champion?
I think Nikki's gonna walk away with that. There's gonna be something going on between Charlotte and Rhea, and she's gonna capitalize just like she did at Money in the Bank. Coming out of nowhere and getting a roll up or something along those lines, and getting the steal.
Astrid?
Yeah, I see either Nikki or Rhea. I'm like looking at the website here. So I'm like, yeah, I just don't see Charlotte winning again, especially as she just won that title. And I'm like, I don't want. I love Charlotte, but I don't want her winning the title yet again after losing it a couple weeks ago. So I would either Nikki's my first one, and then Rhea's my second choice.
Do we see a return of the man?
I thought about it.
No.
No, no return of the man.
Nope.
All right. I'm happy with that because as we found out on Thursday night, I've been fined $5,000 from Love Wrestling for disparaging the man by saying that she's overrated.
I wouldn't go say that far, but I just don't. I don't see her coming back quite yet.
Yeah. So then we have Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal. I actually like the idea of this match. I know Drew's wanted to do it for a while. He wanted to do it for the title. I'm kind of glad it's not for the title. But this is a real big chance to put Jinder over big because Drew can afford to take a loss here. I mean, it's been an interesting build. I didn't think I'd have so many swords and motorcycles on my wrestling program. But, you know, when you can, go for it. Wrestling's for everybody. And, I mean, who doesn't like a good Claymore? What do you guys think? I'll say Jinder. Does anybody care who wins?
No, I honestly don't. I haven't cared about this for a long time.
All right, so we can move on then, since apparently we all feel the same way. It's like, yeah, it's a match. It'll be fun, but I don't care.
I mean, if I have to choose, it's going to be Drew, just because I think I can see this as an opener.
Yeah,
and you want it to be hot, so.
I was gonna say I could also see it as a kickoff match.
Yeah, yeah.
I could see this kick as the WWE kickoff show match. We then have everybody's favorite part-time man returning. We have Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg.
Oh boy!
I can just see the number. By the way, I'm just gonna little inside baseball. I'm watching the numbers for our viewers, and our numbers just went down to 1. I think one of those 1 is probably us watching the stream to make sure it's still up. Boy, we're talking Goldberg, and it's just gone downhill.
Yep. I can see Lashley winning, but Goldberg giving him a little what if afterwards, and then maybe we get a cash in from Big E.
I've been saying for a long time that I really want Goldberg to win, not because I want Goldberg to win, because that's just awful. Mm-hmm. But if this whole thing is to give Big E that one magic moment for his career where he gets to win a world title off of Goldberg by cashing in that briefcase that he currently apparently doesn't have. Did Baron
I was going to say that.
I'm like, did Baron Corbin steal his briefcase last night?
Yeah.
Yes, and our friend Carter is here saying, "I am here for all the big men slapping meat."
It's not meat, it's beef. All that beef. Beef. Wow.
But yeah, I mean, if there's no cash in, I really hope Bobby wins. If there's going to be a cash in, I want it to be cashed in on Goldberg.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
We then, I'll let Ashton start with this one. This will be a good match. We've seen it a bunch, but, when in WWE, rematches. The Usos versus the Mysterios.
That was a tough one just because of everything happening with John. I really didn't want him to be champion, so if they lose, I really don't mind it. But do I see the Mysterios winning? Probably not. So probably going to be the Usos most likely. So.
Yeah, kayfabe wise, I think it's going to be the Usos going over. I think they're really trying to build this Ray versus Dominic storyline, and I think this is where it's going to culminate. I don't want to see somebody who, with what he did, I believe it was Jimmy that got pulled over with. Yeah, I think he should have had a little bit more than just a slap on the hand, but he's going to get away with it because who he is and who he knows. So like I said, it's going to be the Usos, and they're going to drive towards that Mysterio dissension.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see Ray versus Dom because I really want to. As I've said before, I always love seeing Dom get punched in the face. I haven't liked him since he was a kid, and I'm sorry. I didn't. I thought he was the worst part of that feud. Little kid. He should have been more happy with Eddie. Eddie was his father, apparently.
At what point does he just go, I wish Eddie would have won that match? And
I can't wait for that moment to come on television. If they have a feud between him and Ray, and that line doesn't come out, because Ray's going to be fine with it. Ray will probably tell him that that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because Ray was part of that storyline where him and Eddie came up with the whole thing to begin with. When you hear Dominic talk about it, he's like, no. My dad and Eddie were the ones who came up with the idea. It wasn't a crazy Vince idea. They're like, no. It was my dad and Eddie who wanted to do something fun. And they thought this would be.
And how fitting would it be, like, if they do start that dissension a little bit more, that it's at SummerSlam, the event that they had the contract match.
Yeah. It's all coming full circle. I mean, it could be great. It could be great.
Mm-hmm.
We then have what I think will be the semi-main event. We have Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. They had the contract signing last night, and for some reason, Sasha has backup. I'm not sure that Sasha needs backup, but sure, we'll have Carmella and Zelina Vega go ahead and back up back up Sasha. But I think this is where Sasha gets her title back, to be perfectly honest with you. Bianca's done very well holding the title, but until we get a shake-up, there needs to be something needs to happen, and I think that Bianca's gone through everybody there. So it would be nice to see Sasha come back and Sasha get a big win.
Go ahead.
No, I'm thinking, like, if we do get Sasha, it would be nice to see other people. Like, where has Tony been? Where has Liv been? And I would like to see them wrestle Sasha, to see Sasha and Selena and Sasha and Carmella again, especially now that she's has improved a lot. I wanna see all these matches that we haven't seen in quite a while. We haven't seen before. I would like to see that with Sasha as champion now.
I think Bianca's gonna retain. They've been putting a lot of stock into her, and I think maybe this is just the first of many more Sasha versus Bianca. But I think it's going to be, I think it's good. Belair is going to go over. But I would think what would be an interesting way to go with this is eventually a hair versus hair match. And this may be just me being dumb, but you got Bianca with her ponytail, and then you have Banks with her blue hair. Like, it'd be interesting to see them do something of that nature, at least to me, because I'm a dumb wrestling fan.
I love the hair versus hair idea. I think your ideal opponent for that somewhere down the line, because I think that you have to build the hair a little bit more, because you have to build the idea that she might eventually lose the hair.
Yeah.
But ideally, I think that the person who loses that hair versus hair match somewhere down the line is going to be Bayley. Because I think Bayley's one of those people like Molly Holly who's going to go to Vince and be like, when that match finally happens, I want to be the person to shave my head. Because I think Bayley wants all those iconic moments. And the Molly Holly, the story of Molly Holly going to Vince and going, we're not on the WrestleMania card? No, we couldn't find room for you. What if I lost my hair? Okay, cool, you're on the WrestleMania card.
Yeah.
Like, her being willing to just to get on Mania, to lose her hair, to make it happen. I can see that being a Bayley thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, with Sasha, I don't see Sasha, like, losing her hair like that, and neither does Bianca, so I'm like...
Especially not doing the Mandalorian stuff. Like, she's part of the Disney universe right now. Like, granted, the wigs and unnatural, like, she could grow her hair back. It's not like it's super long. Like, Sasha could get shaved bald and be fine. I mean, look at Britney Spears. I mean, one of my favorite people in the world. But Britney Spears, she shaved her head completely bald, and she's had hair for many and many years now, and it looks fine. But I mean, like, Disney could do whatever they need to with Sasha. But I just think if you have somebody that prolific and that out there, that's not the kind of person who's going to lose their hair.
Mm-hmm.
But someday I would love to see a multitude of matches with Bianca where it ends in hair versus hair. And someday I want to see that ponytail cut off. I think that would be the best heel thing in the world, the best baby face. Because I think by the time she gets that cut off, it has to be Bianca as the heel.
Yeah, and I think with her having the hair as kind of her gimmick, right now, because she uses the hair as a whip during a lot of her matches, or it's being used during a submission. I think eventually she's gonna need to cut the hair to make herself still seem interesting or still be relevant. Because if you have this kind of same gimmick, for so long, it gets stale. It gets over. You've seen it too much. So I mean, I know she said in an interview she doesn't want to cut the hair, but I think at some point she's gonna. I feel she might change her mind on that.
Yeah. So then we have Edge versus Seth Rollins, which is going to be probably a 4.5-star match because these guys are absolutely fantastic wrestlers and they tell an amazing story. And the build to this hasn't been the absolute best. I mean, it's been fine, but like this match didn't need any build. If you had just told me it's going to be Seth Rollins versus Edge, I would have been like, all right, cool, I'll watch this. This is long-term storytelling finally coming to fruition, going all the way back to Seth Rollins claiming he was going to stomp Edge's neck if John Cena didn't bring back the Authority. But I mean, what do you guys think? Edge wins. I don't know.
I think Edge will win. He needs that kind of that match like he's lost at Mania. He had the Rumble win earlier this year, and he's kind of been on a downward slope. But I think definitely for this match, Edge will win. I just hope this isn't the matter of it looks good on paper, but in practice, it's not as good as we hope for.
Very possible.
I don't know. I'm a Rollins fan, so I definitely still cheer for Rollins either way. But I definitely am excited for this match. I really am looking forward to it.
I was going to say, I'm like, there's no bad winner to this match. As long as the match is quality, it doesn't matter who wins or who loses. These guys are bulletproof, and they could eat loss after loss after loss and still be in a main event world title picture in 2 weeks. Just by saying, I'm Edge or I'm Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
We then have... I love how they list these matches because this is definitely not going to be the semi-main. This could very well be the kickoff match. We have Sheamus versus Damian Priest for the United States Championship. I'm happy to see Damian Priest on TV. I'm happy to see Damian Priest doing fun things. I'm happy to see him in a match with Sheamus because Sheamus likes to beat people. And Damian Priest does a really great job of being beaten up and giving a beating because Punishment Martinez is one of my favorite Ring of Honor wrestlers before he came to WWE. Astrid, I know that you're a big Damian Priest fan. Does he win the U.S. title on Saturday?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, not sure if it will happen, but I hope so. Yeah, I really love Damian, and I see him on TV every single week. My Puerto Rican representation that I get, the little that I get. So I really hope he does win, though.
Alex?
And this probably isn't going to be a popular opinion, but I don't see him winning it. Maybe build him up a little bit more, have a few more matches with Sheamus, and then. But I feel like Sheamus and the United States Championship have kind of been on the back burner a little bit, and I think it needs to be brought back up before giving it to Damian, so that there's a little more hype behind it.
Yeah. I don't think that's not necessarily like a down take. I mean, Damian Priest is still building his reputation. Sheamus is a proven star. He doesn't have to win it on the first time out. Like you can have him eat a loss here in a big moment with Sheamus and come back, next month and win it, or in a couple months come back and win it, or when it comes Survivor Series. Like there's plenty of opportunity for Damian Priest to lose this match and look great in defeat.
And the fact that they just did the thing where Miz got out of his chair on Monday, I think that's still going to be a deciding factor, into this match. Like they're going to get involved in some way, Miz and Morrison.
Very possible, very possible. I mean, I love The Miz. I think that The Miz is probably one of the most underrated talents of the last 20 years, which is hard to say considering the guy's tagline is "I'm The Miz and I'm awesome." But I think people take for granted all of the wonderful things that this guy has done for this company and for the wrestling world as a whole. He's a great representation of what wrestling can be as a talent, and I really think that that's an important thing to make mark of, because this guy will do any and everything for that company. I mean, he wrestled in a zombie match with zombies on the outside of the ring and got hurt for the first time in his career. And he didn't go away. He's like, no, keep me on TV, put me in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Injured in a zombie match that was pre-taped.
Yeah,
is embarrassing, I would say.
Yeah, but unlike other guys who go, okay, cool, I got 6 months off while I recover from this because I'm choosing not to do surgery. This is like, no, trot me out every week in a wheelchair and let me shoot a pretend water gun at my friends. Yep. Like, that's the epitome of like the little things that this guy does for this company, because he's continued all of these storylines because he's still on TV, even though he could have taken time off to enjoy his lovely wife and his 2 kids. Potentially had a third at this point. I mean, Miz just pops out kids like Mike Bennett does. I mean, they're expecting their third.
And Matt Hardy too.
And Matt Hardy just popped out another Rat and Rebby. And not to mention Baby Gargano coming.
Yep.
I mean, now, this is going to sound like a weird take. Is there a point where WWE starts getting a little bit irritated at their female talent? No, I know. It's not a good question to ask, and it doesn't sound nice, and it sounds misogynistic, because you can't ask the same question about the men. And I understand that. And I'm looking at Ashton as I say it because I feel bad. But I'm going to ask the question. As a company telling a story, does the company ever start to get slightly irritated, not upset at their talent, because their talent's allowed to be able to do what they want with their bodies? That being said, does the company ever get irritated or angry that these women start having children in the middle of storylines? Because we have Candice, who's in the middle of the Way storyline, who's now have to be completely written out of it because obviously she can't do any in-ring competition. Mm-hmm. The bigger statement of this was Lacey Evans, in the middle of a storyline with Charlotte Flair and Ric Flair, becomes pregnant and has to be pulled from that storyline. And then we have Becky Lynch, who, she was done with her storylines, and for the most part, but she has to relinquish the Raw Women's title and the Money in the Bank, and gives it to Asuka because she became pregnant. At a certain point, the company's got to be like, we get it, but geez, like, in the past 2 years, baby fever has taken over the company. And with a lot of these couples in here, it's like, what happens if it's Bianca next? Like her and Montez. We have Tommy End and Zelina Vega. Like, there's a lot of potential, stumbling blocks for people with storylines that could have a storyline derail at a moment's notice. Should the company be allowed to be slightly irritated that their storylines get upset by these apple carts?
I'm gonna let Astrid go. I have no bearing. I have nothing to say.
It's like, I see it from this point. It's like, it just shows you how the company should have backup for things like this. Mm-hmm. And obviously WWE doesn't have anything like this. You know how most of the reports show that Raw gets written like at 6 in the evening and the show starts at 8. So, and I think they should have backups, because you never know. Most of the talent that they have right now, they're very young. They're in their 20s, 30s. So they're going to want to have their families. And it's like, do you give up your career over your family? Obviously, with genetics, you're going to want to have your kids at a certain time. So I think they should have backups for this. And there's something you can plan for. You have young talent, and most of them are married to each other, travel with each other most of the time. So it's hard for you to control it. And I think, like any other job, they should have a plan for things like this if it happens. But I don't think they should be irritated at them, because I would choose having a child over being in a storyline, no offense, because You only, if you don't want to think about it, you only have a certain time for things like this.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying the company is irritated. I have no knowledge of that fact. I'm just saying, as it's the unfortunate stumbling block that can come with female talent is that there are certain, like injuries happen and you treat it like an injury. You plan your storylines for this is what's going to happen. And if something happens, then we pivot. And they've done a great job of trying to do that. And I wonder if the company ever behind closed doors is like, really? Like another one? But, it just came on my mind because we were talking about different things. And I'm like, I'll throw it out there. I know I sound like a jerk now, and I apologize to everyone watching. I'm going to be in Spencer's office this week. I have a bad feeling. The Becky Lynch stuff, and now this. Oh, boy. All right, back on track. John Cena versus Roman Reigns. We've talked about it earlier. It is the main event of the show. There is no chance any match goes on after this. This is the main event. Is there any chance John Cena wins this?
Very slim. I'm going to say very slim. It would be awesome to see Cena back into the picture, back on TV for a guaranteed amount of time. But with him, he's doing the Peacemaker show, and then whatever film he's going to be in next. There's no guarantee he's going to be around after SummerSlam. I even think that there's been talks that he's going to be gone after SummerSlam. So, but even then, the talk has been that they're going to bring back The Rock to have him do something with Reigns. So, I think it's definitely going to be a Roman over Cena for sure.
Yeah, being in this gimmick that Roman has, I don't think somebody like Cena, who hasn't been on TV for quite a while, should win over him. If somebody like all these challenges as he have been people that have been on the roster actively for the past couple months haven't win over him, Cena shouldn't either. And that's how I see it. And then who knows? I'm like, if Cena does win, is he gonna be wrestling there every week, even though he's doing all this other stuff? I doubt it. So if he's not gonna be there 100%, there's no point. I'd rather have Roman that's there every single week. He's been doing so well and keep going with it. And he's been doing so well. I'm like, we have Balor who could be going next against him. I want to see that too. I'm like, I love the promos and I love the build-up, but I don't want Cena to win.
And I agree. I would love to see Cena, like I said, in a neutral world where there's no title on the line. I have no problem with John Cena defeating Roman Reigns. I found it interesting. I've been watching back a lot of Cena stuff since he come back. For as many times as people criticize in the internet, I'm going to say people, the internet wrestling community, the IWC, as much as we can criticize WWE bringing back John Cena and Goldberg, and when you watch these moments happen and you watch fan reactions to these moments happening, the fans in the arenas are in for these moments. Like, fans cheer Goldberg. Now, granted, they boo Goldberg pretty big too. But when that music hits, there's a pop. When Cena comes out and Cena's music hits, there's a pop. We're hearing a whole lot less let's go Cena sucks than we used to. And I'm surprised by that because I thought this wrestling fan base, especially after the pandemic, would have been totally like back to the 50-50, just out of mocking. I mean, we have Kurt Angle who gets chanted "You suck" every time he comes out because it's fun and we like to do it. I'm surprised that doesn't happen for Cena anymore. But that's the reason why WWE brings these guys back, is because you get that pop in the arena, and these fans that are there at the live shows want to see it. As much as we think that they need to build young talent, the crowds, the cheering that they get from the crowds is telling them otherwise. That being said, there's almost no chance in hell that John Cena gets this win. Alex is like, no. I laughed at the first one. I'm not laughing at that one.
This is the last time I'm on this show.
Oh, no.
When Ed's hosting, I'm no longer.
Oh, no. I've done it now. I feel like the people who try to run blowing off stream. which, by the way, you can catch Blowing Off Stream
Hey.
tonight at 10 o'clock
Hey,
with our friend Alex running Blowing Off Stream tonight.
you will never see Ed on that show either.
Oh.
Sorry,
But no,
we'll be the Saturday guys that are kind of just like reaching out to each other and
the
trying to,
feud.
yeah.
Feud.
Yep.
And then there'll be that mega handshake from the Mega Powers
Yep.
when we come together. But no, so SummerSlam looks like a great card. There are a couple matches that we don't care about. Give it time. The crowd. Give it time. The chant will be back at SummerSlam. It's very possible that crowd will chant that at SummerSlam, and I hope they do, because honestly, I miss it. I miss the Cena sucks chant. I think it's an integral part of that character, and the fan reaction to John has always been a key thing.
Mm-hmm.
We loved him when he was a heel in the very beginning. He turned and we all loved him, and then the men, mostly the men, started to realize that he was overbooked. And I say men because if you listen to the crowds in those mid-2000s, there was a very high-pitched crowd that was very "Let's go Cena," which were mostly the women and the children. And then you had the deep guttural Cena sucks, which was a more, male-oriented portion of the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I cannot believe he's doing this again. We just had this discussion.
No,
But,
I gotta admit, in Miami, I was one of the ones saying "Let's go Cena." Now I don't even chant anything. So,
But no, I mean, it's one of those things that every YouTuber has realized, that there was that big divide where it was a lot of the male fans were like, Cena sucks, and the kids and the women were like, no, we love Cena, for a variety of. It's like the mom who was yelling, "We love you, Roman," and the kid just looks at her and goes, "Like hell we do."
Yeah. Yeah, ever since when he became the WWE champion back many years ago, he's been very polarizing, and I think that's definitely something you want in a character too. Like I remember watching ECW One Night Stand 2006 and just seeing the crowd react to Cena and just throwing his shirt back at him and going nuts if Cena wins we riot. And now I'm sure a lot of those people are just like, you know what, he's okay, he's all right.
I think one of the things that redeems Cena's in a lot of fans' mind is that he's been back for runs. Like Goldberg's been back for runs, and Goldberg's been champion twice since he's come back for runs recently. And then they haven't been long runs, and he's not there often when he does it. But he's been champion more than once. Cena has been back repeatedly, over and over and over again, to do storylines or shows. And he hasn't held a world championship in 5-6 years? He held the the U.S. title and stuff like that. But you can give that kind of a title to a guy who's kind of part-time and doing the Cena thing and putting over young talent like Cena did with that U.S. Open Challenge and giving us the rise of Cody Rhodes and Dean Ambrose and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And he made those guys feel like a big deal. And I think that's the turning point that a lot of people had on Cena, where he turned in their minds, was that U.S. Open Challenge run. Is there anything else in the wrestling world that we should... Oh, hold on. We got the wordsmith back again as he prepares for his own show tonight. They hated Cena at ECW because they hadn't ruined ECW.
Yeah,
that is a true statement.
I wanted to comment on kind of what you were saying. Like with Goldberg, they put him into scenarios that people have not wanted to see. I mean, maybe you could say that maybe Goldberg versus Undertaker would have been one of those matches, but at the same time too, he didn't deliver. Like, it was a embarrassing match for both of them. At the Super Show in Saudi Arabia or wherever it was. But every time Cena's come back, he's delivered, and it hasn't been in a scenario where whoever loses against him loses. When you had the Fiend lose to Bray or lose to Goldberg, it kind of hurt him. Like, people wanted to see the Fiend at the time. People wanted to see him with the Universal Championship, and they gave it to Goldberg, and it kind of killed the momentum for Bray in a big way. But for Cena, every time he's come back, he's only elevated the people that he's been working with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a big thing to remember, is that You can bring in these old timers, and as long as you're elevating young talent, and it gets back to the CM Punk thing that will kind of bring this full circle as we kind of get close to the end of the show. Cena's done a really good job with even in winning some of these matches and some of these feuds. He's done it to try to elevate young talent and not make them look foolish. He was the one who was brought in to punish Baron Corbin, but that was done for a reason that WWE had. But it still made Baron Corbin feel like a bigger deal feuding with John Cena. Him beating up Elias all the time made Elias feel like a big deal because he's in a program with John Cena. And even Elias said it. He's like, I love these promos because I'm in the ring with a guy the fans care about. So the reaction on me is bigger on that. And the company can go, he can get a big reaction with depending on who he's out there with. And like I said, if CM Punk comes in with the right mindset and he's willing to elevate young talent or elevate talent, they don't even have to be young, just elevate talent. Make sure that everybody looks good coming out of this. That's the best part.
Yeah.
It's been a slow, as Pluggo and them said, it was a slow week in wrestling, and we've managed to stumble our way through an hour and 20 minutes. So I think we're going to go ahead and get ready to call it a day because we've got 2 more shows today. I will again remind you, RK Athletics is here for all of your athletic needs, for working out and whatnot. Visit them at RK Athletics 1 on all the social medias, and you should be able to find them there. They are fantastic people, and they've been sponsoring Love Wrestling since the beginning, so we always want to give them a shout-out. Speaking of shout-outs, tonight, Word Slam, 8 p.m. on all of the Love Wrestling platforms. There will be an open mic portion, so if anybody hasn't, I know the Love Wrestling community has put in, a lot of us have put in some pieces for it. But for those of us who haven't, if you want to, there will be an open mic portion of it. You can read wrestling lyrics in a poetic way. You can read a wrestling promo in a poetic way. You can make up something wild and crazy. I know we've had a preview of Zach's interesting segment for tonight that I can't wait to see what happens from that based on the teaser that we've seen. So that'll be interesting.
If we could do a wrestling themed karaoke, I'm totally in.
I don't know what platform we can do that on without getting demonetized.
This is true. Yeah, this is true.
I mean, maybe we could do it on Facebook. That might have to be a Facebook only stream.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we can monetize Facebook, and I don't think there's DMCA on Facebook. But I know DMCA exists on Twitch, so I know we can't do that. And we've already had issues with YouTube, so I don't think Spencer's going to take that risk.
Yeah.
But that would be a fun... Even if it was just us all in a chat, that would be a fun night of karaoke night. We have to bring that up to Spencer. By the way, if you can, go find the link to the Spencer thing. We're still trying to get, I believe it's 200 retweets to make Spencer dress up as Glacier next week for SummerSlam.
Find that on Twitter.
Yep.
@SpennyLove.
@SpennyLove. Search the tweets. You'll have to go back a little ways, but it's on there. And Spencer did say at 200 retweets, he will dress up as Glacier next week when he goes to SummerSlam with JPJ. So that'll be fun and interesting to see. That being said, we're going to plug our stuff right here. So I'll let Alex go first.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going, everybody? After Word Slam, make sure you tune in to Blowing Off Stream tonight with myself and the rest of my stable mates on Love Wrestling. We're going to be playing some Among Us, unless the bankroll for Love Wrestling can spot me a couple bucks and we can get something else on Steam. But besides that, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. OnlyFans, I think, somewhere out there, probably, maybe not. At EctoGuy87, or just hit me up and let's talk. Let's talk some wrestling.
All right. And we've got Astrid. Oh, hold on. Astrid tried to post the thing and it won't let me because it won't let me fix it.
Yeah.
Let me pause. Damn it. Here we go.
There you go.
I can put it on the screen. We'll put it on as Astrid does her thing.
You can find me on my Twitter's Astrid Pizarro and my Instagram's Astrid Pizarro 20. Usually there and usually on the What Report for NXT on Tuesdays and obviously here for Saturdays reacts.
All right. And then if I can hit the right button, We have me back again, and you can find me at edfries12584 on Twitter. You can find me again co-hosting with Astrid and JPJ on the War Report on Tuesday nights. You can also find me with most of the time with Parrish and our rotating group of friends. Most of the time we'll have Astrid. Apparently we won't have Alex anymore because Alex
You always have me back. Don't worry. I got nothing else going on in my life.
That's not true. You have plenty going on. But I also wanted to make sure that I shout out a friend of mine, Tom Collyhue. I moderate his Twitch chat, so you can find him on twitch.tv/Tom Collyhue. And we do all kinds of wrestling stuff. We have our spoiler warning shows on Mondays and Fridays where we get wrestling news that often gets confirmed by the bigger boys later on in the week. We also have on that show, we also have watch parties for Raw and SmackDown, and I will be joining him next Sunday night for a watcher party of NXT TakeOver. So if you want, come over there and join us there. And I think we're going to have some React shows for SummerSlam weekend. We might just do a React show after TakeOver that reacts to everything that's happened that weekend. We will wait and see. We have not gotten the official word on any of that. But you can also find, like I said, we have Word Slam tonight, 8 o'clock. We have Blowing Off Stream tonight at 10 o'clock. I don't know if they're leading one into the other, but you can find them on Twitch. You can definitely find Blowing Off Stream right around 10, as Alex will be running Blowing Off Stream with his group, with a big group of friends, hopefully. You can also find us tomorrow for Sunday brunch, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 11 o'clock Mountain Time. On all the Twitch platforms for Sunday brunch. I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm sure Spencer will have a great topic in line, and we'll have some great friends to talk about it. With that being said, this has been Alex, Astrid, and myself, and we have reacted to the week in wrestling. Have a great week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hit the right button. Hold on. Hold on.